Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome this evening. My name is Dr. Christopher Wagner, and I'm the chair of the Biomedical Engineering Department. And I want to welcome you to this first event for us in terms of connecting some of our alumni with prospective students and getting some of their input on their careers and development through the BME program here. And we're going to get to them in just a little bit. I'm going to start the proceedings here with a quick overview of our program, just to set the stage so that you have an understanding of the perspective of the alumni who are going to be speaking, having gone through this program. As I'm sharing that, I'm going to explain real quickly how we're going to go about doing this. For those of you viewing, you can put questions into the chat box at the bottom, or well, somewhere on your screen there will be a little menu, and you can open up the chat box and then type questions in there. And as we get started after the overview and get the panel discussion going, then I'll start to be able to incorporate some of those questions that are coming from our viewers to be answered by our participants and panel. So let's get this started. So real quickly, again, thank you for joining us. This is the Biomedical Engineering Department at the College of New Jersey, and I'm Dr. Chris Wagner. I'm an associate professor here and the chair of the department. This is a little bit about my research as an introduction to me, but we're really not here to hear about me. What I would say about our faculty, and I being just one of them, really represent a good cross-section of the diverse areas that biomedical engineering plays in. So my area here is sort of soft tissue mechanics, soft tissue orthopedics. And we have faculty who do hard tissue orthopedics, cardiovascular work, some neuroscience work, and faculty who do physiological measurements and the like. So we cover a broad swath of what biomedical engineers do in industry and in research activities. What I want to start with real quickly is give you a quick overview of our department. So our department, in terms of biomedical engineering, is very focused on medical devices. We cover all of the aspects of biomedical engineering, and so it's not only medical devices. We have a number of students who do go on to graduate school, whether that's master's level or PhD level in biomedical engineering, or other types of professional school for medical school or law school, but mostly medical school. We have a small population of students who do that as well. But like I said, our focus really is on medical devices. I think that's one of our strengths, and you can see some of the types of medical devices here on the screen that that you probably are familiar with to some degree, just in being alive in the world. And really, medical devices play a lot in terms of tissue engineering, implantable devices, hip implants, cardiovascular implants, cardiac defibrillators, pacemakers, diagnostics, prosthetics, and other types of orthotics, and then rehabilitation assist devices. So biomedical engineers are involved not just the design of them, the quality end of them, the regulatory end of them, and also developing those technologies as they're emerging from a research perspective. So after college, biomedical engineers do quite a lot. I already said that a fair number of our students go on to graduate school or medical school. But a lot of our students, probably the majority of our students, go on into industry. And those industry jobs are quite varied, and you can see one of the challenges, and I'm hoping that the panelists will be able to talk about this a little bit, is for when you go out and look for jobs, your attitude is really just like look at biomedical engineer and hopefully the jobs come up, and those really aren't the job titles. And so you can see here a number of job titles that are quite varied in a lot of different parts of industry, and you can see some of the companies that our graduates have gone to and the types of job function that they're doing. So this is kind of the varied end of things in terms of what is available to BMEs from an industry side. But we do have panelists tonight who can speak to the graduate school work in terms of PhD, another panelist from a master's perspective, and then one of our panelists is also currently in medical school. A couple of points of distinction about our program. We have a really dedication to the undergraduate education. We only have undergraduates on campus in the biomedical engineering department. And so that's where our focus is. We really emphasize medical device industry. We have, that's a big area in terms of New Jersey. And we teach to that medical device industry regulations. So our senior project experience, which I'm sure the panelists will talk about, really mirrors that process. We have lots of research activities. Our undergraduates are often funded to participate in research activities and present their research at national meetings and the like. And then all of our students complete the Fundamentals of Engineering exam. That sounds kind of crazy to say, hey, you get to take an exam. But it really is kind of a key distinction for us because the vast majority of our students do pass it. It's a great way of sort of level setting your understanding of engineering and in terms of engineering principles. So I don't want to be this about me. I want to get to our panelists and be able to ask them some questions and help to enlighten you from an alumni perspective, what it's like to be in our program and then shortly thereafter. So I'm going to ask the panelists to each introduce themselves real briefly as we go through this. And our first panelist is Abby. So go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Abby. I'm from Morristown, New Jersey. I'm currently an MD PhD student at Cooper Medical School of Rowan University. My senior project was Smart Cushion, and I'm currently in my second year, so I spent some time in a PhD lab, and I'm in the nearing the end of my first semester of my medical education.
Great, thank you, Abby. And we'll go on to Jordan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan Kale. I graduated from TCNJ in 2016. Originally from Mahwah, New Jersey, but now living in Morristown. When I was at TCNJ, my senior project was the portable vitals monitoring device. And I'm now a senior product development engineer at Stryker.
That's great. Thanks to have you, Jordan. And Alec.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alec Paterno. I graduated in 2019. I'm originally from Manasquan, down by the beach, and I guess we're all in the same location now. So I live in Morristown now. I moved up here because I work for Becton Dickinson, Franklin Lakes. I'm a regulatory affairs specialist. My senior project was called the Gate Amending Response System, and fun fact from my college day is that we're now patent pending. So yeah.
Great. So each of the panelists introduced their senior project, and one of the things that I think is a key distinction for our program is the way that we run our senior project. So I'm sure that the panelists will answer my question when I ask them about that. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing this so that you can see all the panelists in one location. And I'm gonna start and ask a couple of questions just to get things started. I want you to think back, way back when you were in these students' shoes, thinking about your collegiate career that was coming up. How did you decide on biomedical engineering? Like, what was the thing that maybe inspired you to that? What did you know about it? Did you luck into it? I'm assuming it was lucky, right? So why don't we, whoever wants to jump in on that, how did you decide?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, well, I think most people that go into engineering in high school, I was always good at math and science. So that's, kind of the subjects that interested me. And I was also actually considering going to medical school when I was going into college, but mainly getting pushed from my parents to go to med school. But I personally knew I was really more interested in kind of figuring out how things worked and the technical side of it. So looking at the BME curriculum, I saw that it lined up pretty well with the prerequisites for medical school. So I figured, I would major in BME, and then if I decided in college that I wanted to switch over to pre-med, that would line me up perfectly. But once I got into the engineering classes and started doing like the more technical work, I loved it and stuck on that track.
Great. Anyone else?
I actually, I started college wanting to go to medical school as well, but I started out as a pre-med major in biology. And I actually met an upperclassman who was a biomedical engineer and was telling me basically how great the program was, how many opportunities there were out there. And I wasn't positive that I wanted to do medical school. And so I ended up switching my major over to biomedical engineering after talking with Dr. Hall, who was the chair of the department at that time. And I just realized that I just thought there were going to be a lot more doors open to me, regardless of what career path I took.
That sounds a little bit like you, Alec, too. You started in biology, right?
Yep. Same story, actually. Yeah, I was a little worried that if I didn't want to go to med school, I wasn't sure what I would do with a biology degree, to be completely honest. So I switched over to BME, and definitely it worked out a lot better. I wasn't too good at biology. I liked engineering a lot more. If
you're totally honest. Fabulous. So you kind of came here and you started in engineering eventually. You all found the light. So what do you think about TCNJ in terms of its uniqueness? You've had the chance now to sort of see some of your peers and their engineering learnings from other institutions. Please don't bash other institutions, but how do you feel like you fared in terms of your program compared to some of your peers, and maybe some of the things that you got that were unique at TCNJ?
I can start this time. I have to say, after meeting some people in industry that went to other institutions, I feel like our senior project program really separates us from some of the other schools. I feel like when I started, so my role is in new product development, so we do a lot of design requirements and things like that. And our senior project really set me up to understand that world, whereas other entry-level positions that were thrown into situations like that, I feel like they had to do a lot of catching up. So yeah, I would say our senior project program probably separates us the most from other schools that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I work in new product development as well for Stryker, and the whole process that we go through for the senior project is very well lined up with the industry process. So definitely prepared me very well for that. And then also just, I would say the facilities themselves. I mean, Abby and I graduated in 2016. So Alec, you might have been there when all the new renovations were done. So, I mean, from what I've heard, the campus is even more beautiful than it was when I was there.
Great. Anything to add, Abby?
Yeah, I didn't go to biomedical engineering industry, but after school, I worked in pharmaceutical consulting and clinical trial operations for a few years. And I really felt like the senior project was really helpful for me to be comfortable with ambiguous situations and problem solving and knowing how to ask the right questions to get to a solution. So I just found it like really helpful being in any sort of corporate environment, not just the specific engineering design process.
Yeah, I think that you stated the words more specifically in terms of open-ended, questions that don't have answers, and I'm sure that Alec and Jordan would agree that that's where they live a lot of times. I still remember explaining one day in class to all of you, not in the same class, but that you might all do the same problem and do it differently and get different answers, and you all might be right, and nobody liked that. So that's a challenge. So great. I'm glad that you're finding that. So you were talking about things that were unique, and our senior project experience is absolutely unique. I talk a lot more about it in our Lions Day presentation. So for students who might want more information about how we do that, please attend one of our Lions Day presentations coming up. One of the things that most graduates from TCNJ say is that they really love the experience here. So it doesn't have to be academic, it doesn't have to be BME, but something that you may have really loved or enjoyed being part of at TCNJ, and maybe how that had an impact on what you do in terms of your careers.
Yeah, I mean, for part of the reason like I picked TCNJ was because it's a smaller campus. It's not tiny to the point where it's like high school and you know everyone, but it's big enough where, if you're walking to class, you'll run into people and say hi to them. I was also able to play soccer at the varsity level at TCNJ. So that was great. Soccer is something I love, grew up playing. And then I think being able to play a team sport at such a high level, that really helped me in my job, because just having like working in teams, it's a very collaborative environment. So being able to, get together and work in a group is a very important thing when you get into the professional world.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Anything to add? So go ahead, Abby.
So something I loved at TCNJ was the opportunity to do undergraduate research, which I actually did under Dr. Wagner. And that really fostered my love of kind of asking questions about science and being able to figure out how to answer them. And that's actually why I ended up doing a dual degree with the MD PhD and not just medical school by itself. So that made a huge impact on me.
Great. Well, unless Alec wants to chime in, I'm going to move on to one of the questions from the chat real quickly. So the question is that maybe speak a little bit about the different types of tracks that you might see in terms of careers in biomedical engineering. So maybe more specific for Jordan and Alec, you guys are in really, even though you work both in new product development, you're really in different areas. What types of tracks do you see for BMEs in your respective industries?
Yeah, so for me, right out of graduation, I was thinking of more of a technical role, so R&D, specific engineering roles. But I was offered an opportunity to be to work in regulatory affairs. And really what that is working. So what I do is I work with new product development teams to ensure they're planning to get their devices registered in respective markets. So like FDA, you'll see on the news nowadays talking about COVID vaccines and things you have to do to get your drugs, your medical devices through the agency. So it's not technical per se, so it's not labeled with an engineer, but my day-to-day is very technical. So there's a lot of things out there. It's not just what you might think. I know job searches and things like that can be challenging with keywords, and just typing in biomedical engineer typically doesn't really exist. You don't really see that much in industry jobs. So there's a lot of things out there.
So that's regulatory. Jordan, you want to?
Sure. Yep. So I'm in a product development, research and development role. So in that type of role, at Stryker, I'm in our joint replacement division. So I'm specifically working on a knee implant system, developing a new knee implant system. So, for that type of background, I really need a solid foundation in like biomechanics and biomaterials, which are both courses that we take as part of the TCNJ curriculum. So I would say my role is a pretty technical role because we have to do a lot of the design work, which is really what I love doing. I think it's really interesting, but we work very collaboratively. Like I know a ton of people at Stryker that have BME degrees that work in maybe a quality engineering role, or even we have a regulatory affairs group as well. So we work very cross collaboratively with a bunch of those different types of roles as well.
Right, great. So, and I'll add to that briefly. So the student, our alumni know that I also came out of industry. It's part of the reason our senior project experience mirrors the development process that Jordan was describing. But BMEs also play in a lot of different areas. So Jordan mentioned quality engineering. That can be both on quality control and quality assessment. But also on the manufacturing side, manufacturing engineers is a BME area as well. So there's in medical device arenas, there's a whole host of different areas, different what we would call functions within an organization that have biomedical engineering capabilities. You will have the skill set to do that. So one of the other questions that came across is looking at internships and co-ops. Did any of you do that as part of your academic career at TCNJ?
Yep. Yeah, I interned going into my senior year at a company called College and Matrix. It was really a biomaterials based company. So I was working in their test lab, testing some of their different materials and their packaging. So I thought that was a really great experience. That was really my first exposure to industry going into my senior year.
So, and I don't want to jump in on the other two if you did internships, but how did you find that? So the question was really, do we have like a dedicated connectivity with companies? And the short answer is we don't, but those companies do advertise through what's now called Handshake. I don't know what it was called when you guys were here, in our career services. So how did you find that internship?
I actually found that through a family friend, but there were several career days, career fairs throughout the year, which I found really helpful. Mainly, like even if I wasn't particularly interested in the company that was coming, just because of my personal background, it was still a good practice to get interview tips and tricks, and they would look at your resume and give some pointers. So I found the career fair that happened numerous times throughout the year, and I found that very helpful.
Anything else from Abby or Alec, real quick? It's okay to say no.
I am going off the career fair. I got my internship actually from the TCNJ career fair. I worked at Johnson & Johnson. And then also speaking to our career center, I got my full-time role right now because it was posted in Handshake. So just to attest to our systems, they work out pretty well.
Great. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions around curricula and engineering load. So I'm going to kind of combine those two things. So the questions are kind of like, what's a typical load, and the learning environment. There is a question on our specific curriculum. I don't have a slide for it, but if you go to our website at TCNJ for the Biomedical Engineering Department, we do have our curriculum listed there, and you can look it up specifically. But to the panelists, your typical load and learning environment. Maybe we'll start with Abby this time. I'm going to be the teacher. I'm just going to call on you.
The course load was, I think, if I remember correctly, maybe an extra class a semester compared to maybe biology, because you're taking a lot of classes that have associated labs. So you get that hands-on experience and you're able to really apply the concepts that you're learning in lectures, which is really helpful. I never found it unmanageable, but I mean, I had time to do research during the year, and I thought that it really helped me improve my time management once I got adjusted after the first semester, and definitely learned not to procrastinate because a lot of it's problem solving. So yeah, I thought it was challenging at first, but you get used to it and it really helps.
I think that probably sums it up. How about you guys?
Yeah, I would agree. I personally came in with a handful of AP credits, so if anyone is able to do that, I would definitely recommend that to kind of lighten the load a little bit. But yeah, like Abby said, I think it is one more class than maybe a business major or other majors. But like I mentioned, I played soccer as well, so and I know people who had part-time jobs. Like it was challenging, but definitely manageable.
I think that's probably what I hear from the current students as well. I don't think it's changed in any years. So okay, great. So I want to maybe talk. So I know Jordan talked about the senior project experience, and I know each of you mentioned a little bit about your project. Could you give your 30-second, if you remember it? I know for a couple of you, it's 4 or 5 years out now, right? So, but I think that I probably worked you to death in that class, right? So you should remember it. Why don't you give a little explanation of your specific project, and while you're there, you can interject some things generally about the class. Your 30-second elevator speech. Mr. Patent pending.
Yeah, I can go first. So my senior project, it was called the Gate Amending Response System. Kind of what we looked at was a condition associated with muscular disorders, so like MS, things like that, where people struggle to lift the top of their foot. So kind of what we designed was a device that would lift it for them. So we figured out how to track somebody's gait cycle to a point where we knew when they were about to lift their foot, and we triggered our device to lift it for them. So yeah, the class was great. Learned all different types of things. Thinking about industry and where I am today, I think it was probably one of the most valuable experiences I had at TCNJ. And I mean, it pushed us to a point where we were so passionate about our project because we had invested so much time into it. Some of my team members had personal connections to people with MS and things like that. So it pushed us to kind of pursue the project after graduation. So yeah, we just finished our patent, which was great. And Dr. Wagner gave us the motivation we needed to continue with our project. So yeah, it was really invaluable. It's hard to kind of put into words, because at the end of it, you have this device, a prototype, all this work that you work so hard on throughout the year, and you can turn around and say, wow, that's really great that I was able to accomplish that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Sure. Yeah, so my device was called the Portable Vitals Monitoring Device. So what our device did, it was portable and measured vitals. So it measured blood pressure, heart rate, blood oxygen levels, and I think one other thing, I forget, to be honest. But basically our target market was developing countries. So we wanted to make this as affordable as possible and be able to basically be lightweight and portable and durable enough where like traveling home nurses could bring this to people's homes who didn't maybe have access to a hospital or something like that. So my personal involvement in the project was designing the whole outer casing of it. So I tried to design a nice compact, encasing of it that allowed you access to each of the different vital measuring units. But yeah, it was like I mentioned before, the whole process was really, really interesting. And to Dr. Wagner's credit, lines up very well with the industry practice for the new product development cycle, like figuring out what the problem statement is going to be, and what you're even trying to address, how you're going to try to design it, defining the requirements and what needs you're trying to meet. And then on the back end of it, designing it, verifying that you actually met those designs, and then validating that it's actually usable and fits the problem statement. So yeah, it was a great project.
Great. I'm going to have you come back and teach that class, because what you said was perfect. So, so Abby, why don't you real quickly on yours, and then also speak to, I shouldn't have asked you to do this because I was your advisor. I was going to say, speak to how you do it. You're not just a team thrown into, the ocean and said, swim, right? So how do we organize our mentorship for that?
So my project was called Smart Cushion, and we built a wheelchair cushion that was able to measure and modulate temperature and interface pressure in real time to reduce the risk of pressure ulcer formation. And one of the most valuable things I found for the project was being able to work in a multidisciplinary team. My team was a little unique. There were 3 BMEs, 2 of them had mechanical engineering concentrations, and I had a concentration in electrical engineering. And then we had a team member who was a pure electrical engineer. So it was really cool to be able to collaborate with them. So in terms of working with an advisor, Dr. Wagner was my advisor. So it was really helpful to have guidance along the way. But we were also really challenged to, once we were given some guidance, challenged to figure it out ourselves. And it was more guidance about like resources that we can use to solve the problem. And it really helps you become accountable. I know I was the team leader, so one thing that I learned from the project was to just like how to schedule everybody and have everyone on the same page, and to set up meetings with our advisor. I think we met once or twice a week, maybe a little bit more than other groups, just to make sure everyone was on track and accountable. And that was so helpful transitioning to industry, and always being able now to kind of stay ahead of deadlines because of that training that we got.
Great, thank you. So a couple more questions from, whoops, it disappeared. It was on the chat, so it keeps moving. So in your, and maybe for the 2 gentlemen in terms of industry experience, your day-to-day roles, what you're clearly obviously excited to go to work, right? And well, maybe not, nobody's excited to go to work, right? But you're excited by what you do, and so your day-to-day work, what does that look like? And then the question is really about master's programs, so you can add into that, like, how does a master's, is it needed to get into industry? And how would it change your trajectory? Who do you meet along the way that has that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I would say a master's is not necessary. I personally graduated from TCNJ and got my job and started working, and I did not feel that I was at a disadvantage compared to my coworkers who had gotten their masters and then started working and were in the same position as me. I think the curriculum that the BME program at TCNJ has set you up very well. And I think more importantly, they really teach you how to think critically and think like an engineer. So Maybe there were certain higher level courses in a master's program that other people took, but with how TCNJ helped me kind of think as an engineer, I was able to tackle problems just as well as my coworkers. I am actually going part-time to get my master's right now at NJIT, and I'm lucky enough that my company is helping pay for it. So I don't want to say one way or the other what's right or wrong because there is no right answer, but I think if you can get a job, have your company pay for it for you to get your master's, then I would say that's probably the way to do it.
Yeah, so similar to Jordan, I don't have my master's. I got my job about 3 weeks after graduation from TCNJ, so not necessary. I do meet people that have their masters. I have people on my team that have it. It seems like at this stage of my career, it's really like a personal choice. Will it help you eventually? I'm sure it will. I don't think it would hurt you to get it. But for me personally, I've always thought that I want to figure it out for myself. If it's something that I decide I need, I don't want to just be pushed to get it. So eventually I think I will, just because I want to keep my brain active. I like at my job, I do a lot of research and requirements generation, things like that, which it's good, it's interesting, but I want to keep my math brain going. So I think I'll just go to school because it seems like there's not much else to do these days. But yeah, so that's my perspective. I don't think it's required. I know plenty of people that have their masters, plenty that don't. I think it's probably more of a personal choice, and you'll figure that out as you progress past high school into college. It'll be a little more clear.
Great, thanks. So I want to go back to Abby and maybe catch the medical school, graduate school side. So you had a gap where you worked in between TCNJ and your PhD or applications for. So we don't have to cover that, but how do you feel like the BME curriculum and your research experience? You commented about the open-ended questions and the challenge of answering them when nobody else knows the answer either. How did that set you up for what you're doing now, and how do you feel like you're prepared for the rigors of this advanced study?
Yes, I definitely feel, I think, more prepared than some of my classmates in medical school. Definitely with the time management, medical school is really rigorous. I think like 4 to 6 hours of lecture a day sometimes. So a lot of information thrown at you, and a lot more applying it because you're learning a lot of biology, and then you're applying it to the human body. And so I do think that, again, the problem solving processes that we learn in engineering put me at a little bit of an advantage over some of my classmates. It definitely, my research experience definitely prepared me to be in a PhD lab. I felt a little more confident, I think, working autonomously in a lab. And I just had a lot of, I guess, great experience. I worked 2 summers for the mentored undergraduate summer experience at TCNJ. I had experience, I think I went to the Biomedical Engineering Society conference 2 years to present my research, and then also got additional experience presenting at conferences with the senior project. So that's all been really, really helpful for opening doors, having it on my resume, and then also feeling comfortable, with public speaking. And yeah. So
from those experiences, and I know, I don't know if either of Jordan or Alec had gone to the BMES conferences either, but those experiences, you talked about it giving you just experience in terms of public speaking and exposure. can you speak to others that you met there? You went as an undergraduate, and even though it's a very student-centric society, it's more graduate school. So those experiences of being able to go to a national conference like that, are they something that you feel like is maybe a unique opportunity?
Yeah, definitely being able to network at these conferences is really cool. Just to see the incredible research that's going on at other institutions. I know when I went to Biomedical Engineering Society conference as a PhD student too, I felt more comfortable kind of reaching out to people who were doing similar research. And I know like a lot of my peers in my lab and other students at my PhD program, we definitely collaborate and keep in touch with our peers at other institutions. And it's a great opportunity to meet faculty at these other programs. They usually have little stands set up, and so you can find out a lot about their programs and graduate opportunities while you're there as well.
Great. So we had a question about BME and its breadth and whether or not in industry it may be preferable for mechanical and electrical. And I know this is something I hear a lot. And I usually try to say, no, that's really not the case. But maybe Jordan and Alec can comment on, and maybe Jordan more so, you're in the actual engineering side. How does BME, in terms of its breadth, really, in terms of our program, maybe more specifically, gave you the capabilities to step in and do that? And how do you see other BMEs in your area, or are mechanical or electrical more preferred?
Yeah, I mean, the TCNJ's BME curriculum is great because it touches on so many different fields within biomedical engineering. So we took, biomechanics, biomaterials, bioinstrumentation classes, like physiology classes. So, and probably more, but it was a while ago that I took all of them. But yeah, within the program, you touch on so many different aspects of biomedical engineering. But we also took like a circuits and electronics class, so you get exposure to the electrical engineering side of it. We took like strength of materials and statics and thermodynamics, so you get the mechanical engineering exposure as well. And then through your senior project, you're inevitably going to be incorporating aspects of electrical engineering and mechanical engineering as well. So when you get into the field, like you're kind of a jack of all trades. So it really makes you well suited. If you're going into industry, it makes you well suited to really whatever the role is that's required of you. Like obviously, I'm a product development engineer. Alec is in regulatory. There's so many different things that you are so qualified for because of your undergraduate experience.
And you don't feel like having a mechanical or an electrical, the BME degree wasn't necessarily a deficiency for you?
Oh no, absolutely not. If anything, it was an advantage because we got exposure to so many more things, and it wasn't just so concentrated.
And you feel like the things that you got in terms of BME, sorry, Alec, I know you looked like you wanted to jump in there real quick, but yeah, you can. But in terms of what you got in terms of BME and the curriculum, maybe compared to the other engineering disciplines at TCNJ or other places, the specialty stuff that we provide, that was beneficial to you as well, as that in terms of your career?
Yeah, definitely. Like it really gives you a good foundation and like just exposure to a bunch of different topics that once you get into the field, like there were so many times within my first year on the job, I was like, oh, I need to do this problem. I think I remember a problem similar to that in this class that I took, and whipped out a college textbook and was able to reference that and use that as leverage.
Great. And did you want to add anything, Alex? I started to talk over you, I think.
Oh, no, I think Jordan covered it. Similar to him, I think there's a good mix of biomedical engineers and mechanicals, electricals. But for me personally, my team is all BMEs. There's one mechanical on our team, and he's going to get his master's in BME. So I think it's really up to you, but for medical devices, I definitely think it gives you an advantage in the field to start with BME.
Great. There were a couple of more questions around the types of topics and issues that biomedical engineers do research on. I think we covered that at the top, so I don't want to repeat that. So the maybe in terms of closing it out here for my questions, you each have different sort of days, right? Abby said she's in class lecture for like 38 hours a day. So you each have different days. Specific to your job, what are some of the things that you like and maybe some of the things that you don't like so much? Because we all have jobs and there are things we all don't like. That's the way job world is, right? So in context of maybe things that you maybe were prepared for as well from your days at TCNJ, but your general day, you're doing an engineering role or a regulatory role or a graduate program or medical school role. What do you like? What don't you like?
Let's start. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the technical challenges, the technical aspect of my role. So, we like do testing of our devices to ensure the product quality. Like if you have a rigid device and it's being impacted, you have to go through a certain number of impactions, whatever the requirement is. So and sometimes tests fail. So I think it's interesting when that happens because you then need to backtrack and revisit the design, revisit the requirements, maybe revisit the test setup, make modifications accordingly. And I think that's really, it's not great for the project because that's more time and money that it's going to take to get it solved. But from me having a technical background, I really enjoy working through those issues. And I mentioned it before, like TCNJ's curriculum and the professors at TCNJ really teach you how to think critically and technically and how to think through challenges. Dr. Wagner said before, like he would give us homework problems and he would probably see 15 different ways that people solved it out of the 15 kids in class. But if we're all working through in our own methods, that's the beauty of engineering, is that there's plenty of different ways to tackle an issue. So that's probably what I like the most. And then what I like the least, Alec might not like this answer, but probably all of the regulatory constraints, not necessarily from, the regulatory affairs partners, but like the FDA. These devices are medical devices. They're, at the end of the day, you're improving people's lives with what you're doing, which is, the beauty of what we do. So I do appreciate and understand all of the constraints that, regulatory bodies put in place, but it also means that things move kind of slow sometimes.
Great. How about you, Alec? You can yell at him as for all the design engineers going off and doing crazy things.
Yeah, I was gonna say we never like when we fail tests. But yeah, regulatory is usually the least favorite person. So I usually just say things with a smile and hope it goes well. But for me, because I work in regulatory, I get to experience a lot of our business. So I focus on new products, but I really work in a lot of our different new products. So it's not just one, which is probably my favorite thing. And then similar to Jordan working at Stryker, big medical device manufacturers, you get to see a lot. We have a lot of products, and with certain, when the business goes in certain directions, so like with COVID, my business really focused a lot on diagnostic stuff. So I got pulled into different projects and got to experience that, which is really cool. As far as my least favorite, I would probably say meetings. I don't like being on the phone all day. That drives me crazy. But sometimes it just happens. Yeah, I guess that's it for me.
You can't text that answer in, huh?
Yeah, no. So talk it out on the phone. I don't like that. I'd rather.
Yeah. So Abby, your world's a little different on sort of the still in the education side of things. So add to that in terms of what you like and don't like real quickly.
Sure. Well, I could talk a little bit about a day in the life of PhD student. So when I was working in a lab, you get up early, go in, check on your cells, hoping they're still alive, and you get to run experiments. I loved being a TA at my institution, so I'd meet with students occasionally. And also go to classes and learn. I think it was always frustrating when you have experiments not work out, but then it makes it that much more rewarding a week later when they do work out. And one of my favorite things I think is I always try to reserve time at the end of the day to do my literature searches, because I just love sitting with like a cup of tea and reading about similar projects that are going on. Just learning.
Great learning. So all of you have actually touched on something that's kind of funny in different categories, different ways, which is failure. And I remember I've probably said it in all of your classes at one point in time, especially with senior design. I said, I'd rather you fail the process. It doesn't mean you fail the class, but it means that you're going to learn something. And so one of the things that I'd like to maybe close on is you talked about the curriculum and the things that we give you an opportunity to do. Abby originally, as part of her senior project description, talked about sort of being pointed in the right direction and then told to do it, right? So how do you think that your faculty, in terms of challenging you, but also respecting your knowledge or the lack thereof, as because you're learning as students, making sure that you both get the opportunity to learn, but also to learn from your failures?
So I think that the faculty in all of my classes and even throughout the senior project process, they always were aware of our limitations in knowledge. So I don't think that we were ever really put in a situation where it was something that we could not solve. So we always had the tools or some sort of foundation laid out for us that we could build on to get to a solution for whatever the issue was. Sometimes it took longer than others to find that solution, but we always got there in the end.
Yeah, so go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, where that stands out to me the most is definitely the senior project. In the beginning, it's really just an open-ended problem, and the professors just pitch it as find a problem and fix it. So I remember some pretty interesting ideas that people had for senior projects that students were in over their head, but the professor stepped in and said, "Hey, you might have bitten off more than you could chew. How about you modify these things?" So I think they really had a good understanding of what our capabilities were, but also at the same time, we weren't having these softball types of projects. Like, they were challenging, and they took the better part of a year to really vet them out and get them polished off. So that was, I think the senior project that really exemplifies that.
I think even on like the day-to-day basis, I think I spent a lot of time in Dr. Wagner's office, as well as a lot of other professors, just with homework problems, coming up to exams. I think it's important to note that our professors are very willing and able to help when you need it. So yeah, that was probably my favorite part about the engineering department, was our faculty. And I don't think that they think that you don't need the resources to help you. They acknowledge that it's a challenging program and they're there to help. And yeah, we all did it, and anybody else could do it too. And the faculty is there to help you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, no, I do remember probably all of you at one point in time darkening my doorstep, asking questions, right? So no, I think that we said it at the top. I said it's one of our points of distinction that we are an undergraduate institution. We are an undergraduate program, and our faculty are there because we want to teach, and that's the. I hope that what you've heard over the course of the discussion tonight, that's the case. Um, so I want to, I had one more question that I wanted to, I'm going to go out on a limb here because I'm going to ask about part of our TCNJ programs that's not really BME. So be kind to me. So TCNJ, we've got not just engineering, like you're taking your engineering classes, but we also are a liberal learning college. And so you all had some of what we call liberal learning exposure. These would be classes in history or religion or philosophy or sociology, anthropology, anything but engineering, right? And so how do you feel that those courses may have contributed to your success at TCNJ and you as a human being?
Yeah, I think it's great that TCNJ builds those into the curriculum, because if I was taking super, math and science heavy courses 24/7, like for every class I had, I might have gotten burnt out. So it was nice kind of changing my frame of reference and how I was thinking, because when I'm going into my engineering classes, I'm thinking very math, science, technical minded. Whereas when I'm taking the liberal arts classes, kind of using a different part of my brain and thinking differently. So it's kind of nice to have that balance and have that shift when I'm taking those other classes.
I agree. I loved taking the humanities classes. I think one of my favorite classes I took at TCNJ was an art class. And I liked that I had experience, writing papers in humanities classes. I think engineers sometimes get a bad rap for their writing, but I think we got good preparation in both in technical writing in our labs and having exposure to the humanities classes.
Anything to add, Alec? You don't have to. No, he hated his humanities classes.
No, I like them. It makes you more well-rounded, I would say. It's good to be able to learn about different things and not just the same thing. Pretty
Fabulous. So speaking of writing, and we're gonna close here in just a second. Try to just stay on for the hour. I was speaking with another alumni. I won't say who they are. And they said that I needed to make you guys write more reports and protocols in senior project. So more writing is coming for the future students. No, just kidding. So anyway, I want to express an extreme thank you to Abby, Alec, and Jordan for taking time out of their evening. They, like I, worked today, so they are taking their time out of their evening to talk with you. I want to thank everybody from the audience who posted questions. Now is your opportunity for that last question, because we're going to sign off here in just a second. But again, I want to thank you to the panelists for coming in and joining us on this call and really speaking about your experiences, both in industry and in graduate school, medical school, and how the program prepared you for that, your day-to-day activities. It's really great to see you guys again, and hearing that you're being successful, which is really what we desired for you. For anybody in the audience who want to hear more about the program itself and some of the extra things that we talk about, the Lions Day opportunities, I think there's another one coming up after the spring, but I may be, or after the winter break, but I may be completely making that up. Admissions can correct me. I do want to close on one last thing. There were a couple of questions around medical school. and the curriculum. And the one thing I want to say is that our BME curriculum covers the majority of the medical school, or what we would call pre-medical school requirements, with the exception of one class, which is organic chemistry 2, and you can take that as an elective. So you really have no extra classes to take. And maybe Abby can speak to that real quickly, that, you know, your experience going to medical school, you didn't have to really prepare or take any additional classes to get there.
No, I think all the prerequisites were pretty much taken care of. And then I took organic chemistry 2 over the summer, 1 semester. So it was pretty easy and it was offered often.
Fabulous. Well, again, thank you. We're gonna close here for a second. So thank you for coming out and hearing a little bit more about the program at TCNJ and Biomedical Engineering. Again, thank you for the panelists for joining us this evening. Oh, I can announce that. So our admissions contact just said we have 2 more Lions Day open houses throughout the spring in the 2021 spring semester, March and April. So you can check the admissions website for those and sign up. So on that note, we're going to sign off. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening.